Yeah. Welcome everyone to another Mere Mortals Meandering session. This is your two favourite Mere Mortals, Kyron.
One over here.
And one on the other side, and we're out in the park, out in South Bank. And yeah, this is going to be live and fresh, a little bit of a change up. Normally we do this a week in advance, but there's actually quite a few things, I'd say, semi-changing with the podcast, and I think that's a good place to start. So I got a lot of feedback recently, actually, and it's funny where you go through these periods of not getting that much feedback, and then it's like a ton of it, a wave of it.
Yep.
So we went to the Brisbane podcast meetup last night, and you had to leave a little bit early, but I got into a pretty big discussion with Trevor.
Yes.
Trevor from the Iron Glove and the Velvet Fist, I believe is the.
I remember that podcast. Yep.
So it's sort of mostly a political show, so I don't tune in that much, but they're Brisbane, so I support them when I can. And he was kind of like, I think he was a bit over here in the value for value. He tunes into to our show every now and then. Once again, I'm not sure he's super here all the time.
Yeah, like a daily thing. Yep.
But we basically had this really big discussion on value for value, and he was saying like, you're going too hard into it. There's better ways of doing it. The Patreon model is better. The PayPal model is better. And he made some good points. I think the underlying cause, or the two main arguments he was making was, one, he doesn't believe in Bitcoin as a money, I guess, and so it was kind of like he could maybe see it as a value exchange, but you got to get rid of it quickly. It's not like something that you inherently want. And then the other was because it's so new, he was saying, it doesn't have the functionality like, Dave does his weekly cron boost to us, but God, asking an audience member to write up a cron job to do that for us is like, it's impossible, basically. You got to be super level, Dave Jones level coder. So I wanted to revisit, I guess, the monetization thing again. So I'm very anti-ad, and that one is an ethical thing that will not change. And Trevor kind of understood that. What do you think about having PayPal as an option, but in the background? And I remember we talked about this, but I've forgotten the reasons why we didn't do that.
Gotcha. How would I answer? I'd say fuck that. I'd say fuck that. And I'll tell you why. Trevor.
Man, that's a current level answer.
I only want to talk about this. First of all, it still stems from the answer around Patreon or and other forms of means of getting paid. So we're talking about here getting paid and being supported in another model. Now, if we were to transition into that model, or at least have both of them flying for the time being, would we get, again, in the short term, the extra support that we need to be able to continue the podcast? Probably we would get more support. Undoubtedly.
Well, we don't need it per se. We would get
more support. Yeah. But again, ultimately, and I think a lot of stuff that I've been listening to lately is, but in the long term, in the end state long term, what that looks like.
10, 20 years, yeah.
Do I see things going towards much more of Bitcoin utilization, or that being a more prevalent usage? Yes. Do I want people to be participating in that way? Yes. Do I want to take away, especially the fact of like a value for value model, that, we're not using an in-betweener. So, the value that you're sending through is going directly to us, like very directly. There's no middleman getting cut out. Obviously, if we're using platforms like Fountain, yes, they are taking some supporting value from having the infrastructure set up in place. But by the by, there's very much direct value coming through to us. And I guess my default feeling is, absolutely, Trevor or anyone else who has that statement, yes, we could be getting more support right in the immediacy if we were using the more, prevalent, used modes of getting that support.
Yeah, what people understand
we don't need it.
Right now.
But the thing is, we don't need it. If this was a show where I really need that support to be able to do it, I'm on the bare bones, of what I'm doing, okay, I get it. Then we'll talk about it, and we enable people to support us in that way. But right now, I guess my mentality is still, you want to support us? Go through the value for value model. If it's still too new for you, cool, that's fine. Listen to us talk about it. We'll continue talking about it probably for another 2-3 years when it becomes more prevalent, and you'll be starting to use it. And you go, shit, these guys were talking about it 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It'd be like wild. Sure. I'm not expecting anyone to be setting up Dave Jones cron level, weekly repeating boost, but I might see that in 5 years' time, 6 years' time.
Yeah.
And I could see that too. But for the moment, for me, I just go, if I'm really making any monetary value directly for me right now, that's above, beyond just the operation model of the podcast, I just don't care. It's so down in the priority as to be non-existent realistically right now.
Yeah. So to prove this, I don't think I've sent a single sat of that we have received to you, directly.
I was going to say, just to prove that, I have, of every sat that's ever come through any of these podcasts, I have never received a single one. There's been none that's come through to me for transition to fiat system.
Yeah, I can't even. I know
You've sent me some to Breeze to test it. That's it.
Yeah,
that's literally the only thing.
And those were probably honestly the ones that I put in
for testing initially.
For initial testing. So yeah, so like one is not joking about this here. We haven't talked about this, made it surface, but it's kind of like I'm using those somewhat as advertising in a way, because I boost other shows and it's always Mere Mortals Podcast as the tag, so it's kind of like
it's going back into the system.
We're feeding back in, but we haven't made that explicit. But yeah, it was one of those ones where I'm not the best explainer, so I think I made enough good points to make a case, but Trevor was definitely coming across and being like, look, you need to turn down the value for value. It's too much. And I was like, yeah, okay, look. It was good to get that feedback from someone who's not into like podcasting 2.0 hard out, and he was saying the same to James as well. It wasn't just an indication of our show. It was of the model, I guess. Yeah. Another one, which was and this was like raw Richardness. So Richard from the Cardano meetup.
Yeah.
He was a bit drunk, which was good, because he's pretty careful with his words, which is what I like about Richard. But when he was drunk, you get a bit more juicy, like the real stuff that he thinks.
The real Richard.
And he was saying, actually vice versa. He actually really liked the emphasis on the value for value, the fact that we won't take advertising money ever, and he views that as a big draw. And but we're too scattered. We're all over the place. And I think that was actually, that's one that's kind of been weighing on my mind a little bit as well, because it is somewhat scattered the way we have been doing it, which is we've pre-recorded these ones a week in advance, which has given me more time to edit it and whatnot. I think it does lead to a scattered thing, because we'll kind of pre-record it, we'll do a live one which goes out before the pre-recorded one goes out, so it's always this kind of like switching back and forth, which I think can give although to us you can kind of see
like it, the timeline.
For us it feels the logical, because we're actually recording it, but the way it's released is kind of this back and forth jumping thing, which is why we're always saying check out the latest one, which is actually the one that's coming out next week, that sort of thing. So I think tying in with some stuff related to us, like having a bit less time. You've noticed in the book reviews, there was only 2 that came out last month. I've been busy, you've been busy. I think I do want to try and make these ones follow a kind of chronological sequence, as in I record it and then it gets put out the next day. And I'm willing to try and like commit to every Sunday morning being like, all right, that's editing time. There is nothing else goes
4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is editing time for current Sunday mornings now.
Okay, no, I'm not. No, don't expect that, people. But and kicking up the conversations again. I think that will be. I know you've already started to line some up. So yeah, we're probably looking like the meanderings will be a kind of off and on type thing now. It's like when they happen, but we'll still always try
meanderings and musings.
Once again, we'll see. Well, the musings will stay. There'll always be that live one, whether you can make it or not. I'll still do it just by myself if necessary. But the meanderings as well, like, I mean, they've always been, you know, we have lockdown Saturday morning recently, which has been nice, but before that, man, we were all over the
place.
shop,
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and that's a good point. And I get good feedback, I guess, there from a couple of people, which is always good to get. It's always good to get the understanding. And again, if you want to send through a boostergram or just directly, you know, we've got, again, we do operate in the existing mediums of your Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that. So if you want to lay on us a bit of a commentary around what other things we could be doing different, improving, you know, thoughts, feel free to share it through. It's always appreciated as well. Or in person.
So just wanted to bring those up. There'll probably be, I mean, we always talk that there's some changes, but the more changes coming.
More changes coming.
Always adapting.
Yeah. Well, innovation, right? Innovation. It's going to be changes. All right, I've got a bit of a gripe to share with the me mortalites at home and for kindness. I held this one off.
Oh, what did I do?
No, not from you.
Okay.
It's a gripe on insurance companies this time around. So I recently had to take my car in for a service, and not so much a normal service. It was a crash. There was a crash on it, and not my fault. But I had to get it fixed up. So
you mean like a ding, right? Like a small...
It was a ding. There was a ding on the car. Nothing big.
Yeah,
so
I
had to go take it in for a bit of things. Now, already I had to wait 2 and a bit months to wait for them to get the parts all sorted. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and compress this because I could do this for such a long time. But it was a Monday. And I went, cool, I've got to drop this car off in the afternoon. I was flying into Brisbane back on the Monday morning. And I already was preparing myself. You know, I was Jocko Willing style, being like, something wrong's going to happen. Awesome, cool. I'm expecting it. I'm expecting it to go wrong. You know it's going to go wrong. So I've, you know, you have to, if you don't plan and you're planning to fail, that's you know, it's a big common thing out there. And so I over-planned, dude. In my holiday, I called up the insurance company.
Sounds Kyron level.
Called up
neuroticism.
I called up everything, being like, I'll be there at 3:30. Organise the loan car because it's not close to my house. I organised the loan car to be there at 3:30. Yep, all cool, all confirmed. You know, awesome. Like this is like a day before.
Yeah.
Cool. So I rock up again. I'm expecting this to go wrong, but that's all right. So I'm driving. I basically got off the airport, was straight home, got the car, and go and drop the car off. Cool. Drop the car off. All pretty straightforward. Here's the keys. Awesome. And I'm like, okay, loan car. You know, where's this loan car? You guys work with YOUI. You know, I'm gonna call them out. YOUI. Got them YOUI. What loan car? What loan car? We have no details on it. Oh, I'm like, here we go.
Uh-oh.
Now it's 4 o'clock. Right, it's 4 o'clock.
YOUI screwed.
And I go, oh, here we go. Already I'm thinking, I'm in slides, like long slides for those at home. And I'm like, okay, I could walk home, you know, from here. It's going to take me, I was planning to go in gym, so like, I can walk home. It'll take me like an hour plus, but okay, I can do it. That's fine. Yeah. And he was like, oh, you know, you could try. Now, I had none of these details. I'm about to tell you this.
Did he offer to...
I had no details of like what it was supposed to be, like when this car was supposed to be. But he was like, there's a Hertz down the road. Sometimes they organize it through there. Maybe you should check. What time do they close? 4 o'clock. It was 4:03.
Yeah.
So I went, damn, sprinted. I walked out. I just like sprinted down the road, gone all the way down there, rocked up. They were like just about to close. And I've gone in and look, luckily the person who was there was a Colombian. It was a Colombian person.
Yeah, nice.
And so I started chatting with him, figured out he was Colombian, talk. We were kind of missing each other. He was trying to chat with me like, oh no, you have to get a taxi. You have to like contact Yoni. I was like, whatever, I'll just call YOUI and I'll get this sorted out. But in the end, it sort of they were like, oh no, we do have the car. Here's the car, cool. Anyways, so fast forward towards the end of that, and I was like, okay, cool. He was like, oh, the car's due on Friday. Now it's 5 days, right? Inclusive of Monday. But my car was supposed to take 5 to 8 days to get fixed. So I'm like, oh, here we go. All right, I'm going to have to call up on the Friday and have to extend this. All right, but whatever. I've at least got myself the loan car. I made it. So I drive back home. So that was the first part. You know, bit of a fuck around, but I'm like, awesome. My car's in. It's going to get fixed up. This is phenomenal.
You got the hard part over, which is getting the car. So you're getting like...
Exactly. So here's me thinking,
you're set.
The hard part's done. This is awesome. I'm really happy about this. Then I get a little message on Wednesday, right? 2 days later. Now, bear in mind, it took 2 and a bit months for me to book this car in because of the parts. And I get a little message. And it says, after inspection of your car, we also need to replace a headlight.
Okay.
Okay, cool, fine, folks, right? You got to replace a headlight. We don't have the part. we'll have to re-book your car in.
Nice.
And we'll have to put your car together again. Bring it in March.
In March?
In March. So,
wow.
Again, folks counting at home, that's 4 months I now have to wait. And I'm thinking, well, surely they've fixed the car to the parts that they need to, because it's like the grill needed fixing, the plate needed fixing, the bonnet needed fixing. Again, I do this rush job on Friday to go over, because now I had to like leave work to go over, to swap the car over. Sorry, no, Thursday. I went on Thursday to go and do all this swapping over. So I go with the loan car to pick up the car. Wouldn't you know it, nothing's been fixed in the car, nothing. But they give me paperwork. And they're like, here's the proof of our work. And I looked at it, and I looked at the paperwork, and I actually brought them outside, and I was like, nothing's been fixed. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we mustn't have fixed anything then. And I went, man, what the hell? So I went, and then I just went and dropped the car off, had to walk back to go pick up the car again and drove home. So end state, I wasted 4 hours plus in dealing with this thing, with zero actual like good effectiveness coming out of it. And basically I ended up being the middleman between my insurance company and the smash repairs. And I was talking to a couple of other people, being like, have you had this experience with like insurance? And they're like, no, not really. And it was enough that I bought a new car to not insure with YOUI. I went, I'm going to insure with somebody else. Nah, stuff this. Like, that was dreadful. So they're like a really great customer service, but I went, this was a terrible experience to go all around for picking up the car. Like, okay, fine. They did give me a car and all this, but man.
Right, you glossed over something there. So you got a new car.
I did. Yes, I did buy a new car. Yep.
So what's all of this fixing is to resell the old car, I guess? Is that the...
This is my current car.
So
no, I just want to fix my current car. I just want to get my current car fixed. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah.
But we just bought another car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is sick, folks. I've never really been an SUV fan.
Okay.
But having a brand new SUV, it's pretty sick. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's something about being higher up.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun. I've always, I guess, driven like really quite low to the ground cars, and this was a nice little addition.
Yeah,
so it was quite cool.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm preaching to my own choir here, which is like, fuck that,
man.
Just the
waste of time, man.
The things, like, God. The things you own end up owning you. I think that's from Fight Club.
Yeah.
My Bluey, it's got like this white paint scratch on it, which I only noticed recently. Just all across the front bonnet, not front bonnet, like front right hand side, low to the ground, whatever you call it. And I'm just like, bummer. Life goes on.
Yeah. Well, look, I do have to say, when in comparison to Karen's little Bluey, and we're talking just like a semi piece of shit car. Mine is not a semi piece of shit car. It is an expensive car. But even when I got hit by the person and it was damaged, I was like, man, oh well. That's kind of like, I was just man, I don't really, like, genuinely, I was like, it's kind of annoying. I was just more like, it's annoying that I'm going to have to deal with this bull crap, not the fact that it's like damaged. If it was any other car, like I'll just be like, man, I don't care. I don't really care. So, but it is very true that, the things you own can definitely own you. And in this regard, it owned me with like time to try to deal with it. Yeah,
that just sounds awful to the extreme.
Yeah. So that was a great thing to fill in my days, which are already quite busy, and this was just filled them up unnecessarily, and I was just so annoyed by it all. So
yeah, gotcha.
That was some fun thing to deal with. Another piece, because this is from we've had this happen, and it happens, sometimes, not all the time, for us being mortals. I'm not gloating here. We're trying to be humble. You've had people approach you and say, "You're looking jacked, shredded, ripped, This dude is on another level." And I had someone say something to me just the other day, and I've had the comments of, "Oh, that's very cool. Oh, that's very strong. Are you an acrobat?" Are you an acrobat? I was doing handstands today, actually, at the gym in the morning, and they were like,
nice.
Whoa! This was like a fit stop, so for them it might have been like, it was just the second coming of Jesus. However, I had this thing happen where I went to the gym and I ran as well, and I was sweating buckets, like sweating through my shirt, pouring down. I felt good. It wasn't like I did anything overwhelming. It was just a good workout. And as I was walking out, the two people at the front desk, they were like trying to say something to me, and they were like eyes open, like, whoa. And I was like, pause their headphones, got headphones on. And they were basically just being amazed at how sweaty I was. They were like, whoa, that must have been like a good workout, right? They were just like, whoa, what? And I actually stopped and I was like, yeah, you know, did the workout, but this is what happens when you do a run.
I sweat every now and then.
Yeah, I sweat anyway.
No big deal.
But what it made me go, what impressed them, and when I really thought about it, was effort. They were impressed by, obviously, whatever effort I exerted. And that one was probably the one compliment that I felt really good about. Really good. You know, you can compliment me, and so there's I guess, when you get complimented by performance, outcomes and the things, I think it feels good in an ego basis, because you know, it's like, oh, you're stroking my ego and you won, or you do this, that's like ego. But when you compliment me about effort, about your effort that you exert, and this is often true for like kids and often true for a lot of other people, when you compliment that level, like almost your ability to take the action as opposed to whatever the action had of the outcome, it just kind of like, it made me happy in a very different way. It wasn't like this ego way. I was like, oh yeah, I came and did a workout, I'm sweating. It was like, no, hell yeah, like, yes, you've put the action, and whatever came out of it, you know, effort was expended in whatever positive way. Obviously, you can have it in a negative way, but I went, that's very cool. Like that, if folks, if you see me out about me Immortal Lights and you want to compliment me, make it about my effort.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Comment him on his sweaty armpits.
Yeah. Make it about effort. Like, you know, I'm setting a rule now that if people want to compliment me, I don't want to get a compliment on like, well done on that house purchase, well done on that car purchase, well done on coming first in this, coming third in this, doing this. No, I want the compliment to be like, you know, that's amazing that you put this effort to do this. Or, you know, like, say, equivalent, like if I was to do another Kokoda challenge, it's not like, oh, you placed this
in the top 100.
No, it's like, oh, you put the effort that it took to do that. That's the key winning piece, piece. And I think this is also one of those where, you know, once you see the way in some things, you see it in all ways of, you know, that internally as well for me, when I go and do things, training, life, work, it's when I'm putting the focus on, okay, cool, make sure I'm putting the effort in, that other things just kind of come along with it, which is happiness, successfulness, whatever. It just kind of goes from that point, because you just focus on the amount of effort that you can put towards it. So
yeah,
but that was good. It was one of those call outs for me, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's probably the point where I want people to, and I'm actually going to make always more of an effort to not compliment people either, in a way of like, well, congratulations on coming third. You know, being like, well, that's amazing that you put in that effort, you know, or, you know, thank you for, you know, for being the person that, you know, takes the time to go and do this for that, not that you did this sort of thing. So
for sure, yeah, reinforcing that
reinforce the effort, not the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Or you know, and you think, oh, but what about how can you do it for other ways? It's like, well, if they're rich, you know, reinforce something like, oh, you must have had real good decision making to be able to have this wealth. Like, how did you do this via like smart decisions in investing? That must have taken a lot of time to do, or things like that. So yeah, I think you can, if you look beneath the surface,
you can certainly,
you can find it for almost everything. Look, man, I'm gonna a warning, trigger warning here. We're gonna take a little dive into the mind of Kyron. Expect darkness and neuroses is for sure.
Pause, go get a guide if you need, come back.
Yeah. Works well with ayahuasca as well. Like
it'll open your mind.
So, man, recently I've been in a bit of a funk. It's hard to know if it comes across in the podcast or not, because you only see, you know, it's a small portion and it's very directed. Like we've got a topic usually and whatnot. But probably like the past month, maybe month and a half, I'm noticing like just this shit that comes up, and it's kind of a periodic thing. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is a bummer because I know what this feels like. And so basically what's been happening recently is like I wake up in the morning and I'm kind of like just like I'm in a bad mood from the very get-go, and this kind of like compounds through the day where it'll get to points where especially like when I'm on my own and just doing a kind of like mundane task which leaves plenty of room for thinking, i.e. walking from here to my car after doing the podcast or
handstand
or workout, driving in my car from there to back home, brushing the teeth, something like that, if I don't have a podcast on or something like that. And I've been getting very in my own head, and it's not fun. Like
but very in your own head in terms of like that negative thinking of like, didn't do this right, that could be better, my arm hurts.
Typical thing. So like you just wasted 10 minutes on looking up these stupid videos. Like you've got so much shit to do. You're lazy. You didn't talk to that girl when she walked past. You're weak. Like you're a pussy. You made this mistake here that's gonna cost you time, and you rushed that last podcast. It's gonna sound shit.
Yep.
You didn't prepare for this thing. You should have expected that. Very, very self-critical, I guess is it. And kind of usually what triggers this is, funnily enough, when I make an active effort to talk to girls again. There is just something about this which the feeling tone reminds me of Kyron from 15 to 20, when he was very, very depressed is a strong word, especially after reading a book like The Noonday Demon, where you see
real depression.
Real depression. I'll say like a mini depression, maybe something like that. Maybe melancholy, but it's a bit more stinging than I think that is. And it's not as bad as back then, but goddamn, the feeling tone is the same. And it's I try and catch myself, but there's also like a weird pleasure that somehow comes in being like, oh, you piece of shit, like like it kind of, I can see how it kind of alleviates a little bit of this maybe stress that you're feeling or something like that. But it ends up just fucking with you mentally.
In the immediacy it feels okay, but over time it's just like that erosion of the existing like self.
And it's so irrational as well, because when I take an objective look at myself, like in terms of fitness levels, like fitness definitely, like you were mentioning,
completely shit.
One not helping here. Great friend here. I've never gotten compliments from women in my 20s, and yet now in my 30s,
you're getting compliments.
And I get random people coming up for random things as well. Like I was wearing an Argentina shirt the other day, and this bunch of Latinos came up, and one Latina chick peeled off, came over and started talking with me, and I was like, fuck, that's actually a ballsy approach. Like you have more balls than me. Random Latina lady. And money wise, social skills, like actual physical skills of knowledge, learning, like fucking everything. I'm just so much better than I have been previously, and yet there's such a big difference between knowing something and feeling something. And I guess a question for you is, do you ever have anything like that where it's the feeling overrides any logic that you try and apply to it, and you have to combat like feeling with feeling? So this is where I always use my kind of technique of or my phrase of making myself dumb, which means when I catch myself overthinking, it's almost like a meditative way of making myself dumb so I don't overthink. So it kind of like catches the thought, and I replace it with nothingness, which reminds me of like a brain dead, like a vegetable or something. Like that's honestly the state I'm trying to achieve, because it's better than this overthinking bullshit I do.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Again, I've had this conversation with quite a few other people actually, and I don't know exactly where it's stemming from, because some people that I talk to, it kind of sits along.
I don't think it affects everyone.
I think it affects everyone, but it does in different ways, and often it can be. Again, we've got quite successful people, but still they feel this way in certain areas or certain domains, and it might be because of expectation, or it's like, well, all these things are great, but you still have this internal monologue that's going to be telling you this no matter what, and wherever it's coming from, it's coming from. I don't know. And again, whenever I hear this from people, I struggle to connect a little bit with it because I don't have it as much.
Yeah.
I don't have it as much. And that's obviously a blessing, probably a curse as well in some other forms. But I'm very much in the connected mode of not lounging around in my mind when something bad happens, I guess. So again, if it's the example of like, oh, I approached someone, I didn't approach someone, I think at least because of the way I mentally work, I just jump really quickly to something else. It's just like goes. It's like there for a flittering second and then gone. It's already gone. Like I just not even part of like what I'm thinking about anymore. And that has obviously its attractions, but I've never had to apply that sort of manner. In fact, there's been some times when, you know, I might be really frustrated, like I'll say frustration or something's not going right with work and the like, and I sometimes think, you know, should I be applying some sort of meditative skills here on, okay, let's try to empty the mind or do this. But often for me, it just ends up being the best of just moving on, doing something else, like taking the next action. For me, I guess, it's just a next action of, cool, let's go talk to this person about something else. I'll go talk to them, and almost in that action, I feel the moving away from that thought or the thinking, or, you know, if I put myself in the position of, oh, no, but I shouldn't be good enough for this. I don't know, it just kind of like evaporates very quickly. So it definitely would be there, and it is there, but it just kind of just flitters in for a second or two and doesn't really stick around for me, which, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting how people are different. There's this friend I have where she's an NPC. Like I when I try to look inside of her brain, I just go, I don't get it. Like the way her thought patterns work, and there's just certain things where I'm like, I don't understand what it is like to live your life. There's just the way you react to things you say makes me just like, I love it. She's awesome, but it's just like, what the fuck is going on? What's going on in there? You know, that scene from that meme where it's like it's from that Pixar movie, I think it was Feelings or Emotions or something like that. And you ever wonder what's going on inside someone's head?
Oh,
yeah. Animal monkeys are just fucking flipping over shit.
I guess also, and not, this is probably like a more recent thing, so definitely haven't had it all the time, but I'm very, very much starting to get to a point, and again, you have to like temper this, I want to go all the way, but I'm like, I just don't care. Like I just plain start to really don't care. And look, this is starting to become because I've got enough things put away in terms of life that I can have a pretty cruisy life now. That's fine. And it's like, I just don't care. I don't care about many things. You know, maybe when I was younger, I might have a bit of an idea, definitely, let's say, for myself of like, oh, you know, training, I would wear a shirt and a singlet, because I'd be like, oh, I want to get like a pump, and then I'd take the shirt off and it'd be really cool. Or I'd go for a walk, and if I'm not feeling like, I'm looking my best, I'll just wear a shirt. That's kind of cool. Well, now, man, I don't care. I don't care what I'm wearing. I don't care what I'm looking like. You know, again, like right now, we were talking about this before the podcast, but I was like,
socks.
I want to go
to.
Yeah, and don't let this be in the sense of like, oh, I don't want to have, you know, be looking good or be in appropriate apparel. That's fine. I do that.
Yeah.
But it's also like, you know, I was at the gym this morning, so I'm wearing gym apparel for those who can't see the video. And then I said to you, like, oh, I'm just going to go to Lamborghini Brisbane just because there seems to be some people. Now, totally, there would have been a particular dress code or people wearing like that. I wouldn't have cared a single bit of just rocking up in gym clothes. I'd be like, g'day, that sort of thing. So that, but even across things where, you know, there's been some instances with the work perspective where people are, you know, maybe not being kind, or, you know, I've really started to go to the point of almost just, you know, when you say it, it's very different to it actually being an active thought in your mind. But I've really started to play out it's less about me now and just whatever you're saying. So, you know, if someone's being quite mean to me or quite angry or whatever it may be, I'm starting to, not all the time, but I'm starting to sway towards like, oh, I wonder what's going wrong with them to be like that, as opposed to giving a shit about me. So there's definitely been that mentality transitioning. So I don't know, which is a good thing, but again, you've got to temper that to not go all the way to the extreme and become selfish to a dumb point.
Yeah. What about imposter syndrome? Have you ever felt anything like that? Because funnily enough, this is one where I would think that it would apply to me. Just anytime I've had a kind of like validation of success in some realm. So whether it be having won like club player of the year when I was in Mackay for soccer or something like that. I've always felt like I've earned those things. Like if I get a compliment, I usually feel like I've earned it, and it's not an unearned one. So I've never really had that feeling that Lex Fridman talks all the time about of, oh, I'm just like a regular guy who's somehow, you know, impacted all these people and things like that. Like when we get a message coming through or people saying like, oh, you made like a difference. I saw Anisha again a couple of times recently, and you know, she still says like, really love your podcast, had an impact. It's like, yeah, cool, fuck yeah, of course it has. I'm a fucking man, of course it has. So I've never had that one, which is funny because I thought my temperament would lend itself to that. But not particularly.
Yeah, I don't think either. I mean, again, when we've had those commentaries from the podcast, I'm almost like, cool, I didn't expect that. That's awesome. Like, that's a good thing. And my expectations, look how
sweaty I am. Of course, a fucking good podcast.
I've set lower, I guess. I guess my expectations have set lower for a lot of regards. But even, you know, when it might be like, I don't know, something to do with fitness or something to do with the way you can handle X, Y, Z. I don't know. I'm defaulting now. And it's like, when I say defaulting, I'm not saying like always. I'm saying that for the grand majority of time, it's like, wow, like, thanks, cool, it's awesome. All right, keep going. Like, that's it. Just next action. I think I've always been a little bit of that default action, default assertive, whatever you want to call it. I've always been like that. So, I don't know. I've never necessarily stopped to smell the roses or equally like look at the negatives too deeply to be like, nah, whatever. Sure, it affects it in some ways, but kind of moving forward is still like, my best tactic.
Yeah, it's so strange, man, because so we recorded this last week, but we basically scrapped it because we were rushing and whatnot. But in terms of monthly goals, I wanted to tell this story here because it would take too long on the actual goals itself. But I ticked off my doing something uncomfortable one, which was...
What did you end up doing?
So I did hula hooping.
Oh, yeah.
So once kind of heard this story, so I can skip through portions of it, but there's some additional stuff which you haven't heard. So basically, it was funny. There was like this weird combination of things where it all lined up into me almost missing out on this kind of golden opportunity, which has had like a fountain of good benefits. Once again, because it was almost like I needed luck to force it. So basically, I came out here, there was a girl hula hooping, and I did an approach on her. So like, tick one to Karen. Good job, Karen. We ended up having a fantastic conversation. She came and joined me when I was doing some handstands, and I actually tried doing the hula hoop for about 30 seconds. Was like, fuck this shit, this is hard. Like, I remember what this is like. I tried doing this as a kid, and I always sucked at it and hated it, and it was you know, one of those things you try once and you're like, oh, I'm never good at this, I'm never going to do this again, it's too hard. Was wandering around South Bank afterwards, and there was this hula hoop class being organised by South Bank and the Medibank, Juan's favourite company, the one who lost all his data, called the Feel Good program, and they had something called Hula Fit, which was basically a big group hula hoop class. And I kind of like went in, I looked at it, and I was like, oh, no, I don't want to do it. Like, I'm too scared. Even though there's tons of girls in there, would have been like fantastic opportunity. It was like, nah, I don't want to do it. And on the way as I was walking in just to check it out, this guy was walking out, and he was like, hey, give it a try. Like, check it out. It's really good. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. Kept walking in. As I came out, he was out there, and I was about to walk off. But then I started to chat with him and was like, oh, so what did you do last time? And then he just gave me all this encouragement. He's like, yeah, I could never hula hoop before, but I did this class, and yeah, you actually pick it up really easily and whatnot. And so I went, fuck it, all right, I'm going to do it. And yeah, just opened up all these opportunities. Like, you had to partner up with someone, partner up with this girl. She spoke Spanish. I was chatting with her in Spanish. So there were some other girls there. They were Germans, and I was like, you know, spoke a little, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch, and fucking their eyes just lit up. They're like, oh my God. And then they'd seen me speaking Spanish as well. They're like, you speak Spanish as well? Like, that's fucking crazy. So I actually saw two of them, one of the Spanish girls, one of the German girls afterwards. And yeah, it was kind of like a date scenario. I didn't particularly want to take it any further, and she was the one more organizing it. And yeah, it was funny where I ticked off a monthly goal, very uncomfortable thing that I did, and it was all due to like one guy making this like random comment that kind of spurred it on. And it's kind of like the capriciousness of life. Like I set all these goals, like try and do all these things, and it's the random hippie dude smoking with a beer belly who was like, oh yeah, by the way, hula hooping's cool, which opened up so many avenues for me.
Well, here's a key thing, I guess, for us mere mortalites, that luck is a very true part of life, right? Or you want to call it luck, or you want to call it statistical possibilities, or you want to call it, just the randomness of life, right? So there's obviously that part of it, but the serendipity of putting yourself in positions or availabilities where the odds can land more favorably obviously helps out. So there's going to be a part where the statistical odds are going to be better on your part if you're out. Are you going to meet, if your aim is meeting girls or meeting a life partner or meeting whatever, is it more likely that you're going to find them walking around the park, or more likely that sitting at home looking at a computer? There's probably a good cause to be like, maybe outside. Same. Are you going to work out?
No.
Are you going to work out better if you're in the middle of a forest, or if you're in the gym? Again, there's odds, there's possibilities, there's luck, and I guess the serendipity nature of, yes, you might have a goal, put yourself in positions where that goal can also be met, right? and allows it to be met. So when we set some goals that are like, I want to do something uncomfortable, well, you might not do something uncomfortable if you're doing the most comfortable thing possible all entire month, and it's like, well, I didn't do anything uncomfortable. Well, you didn't put yourself in the position to allow that, either forcibly or just for it to be dumb luck for it to work. So but glad you ended up doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And this I'll tie up in that knot. Okay, Karen, you're bitching about all these negative thoughts and things. What are you going to do about it? The funny thing is, like, it's kind of one of those ones where it's like, I know I need to take a hit in the short term, so I need to take this hit of, I know there's something about the aspect of talking to women which triggers this like mental loop inside my brain. And look, there's a couple other things in my life which particularly like family matters and health matters, which they are definitely not helping. There's some other thoughts, but this one where it's like, it's almost like I just need to acknowledge, okay, short term, you got to take the hit, and then it's kind of putting into practice all the stuff I've learned previously, like don't dwell on negative thoughts, make sure you eat healthy, and get enough sunshine and some exercise. Mentally, like, so the other thing is like, small elbow issues of tendonitis is now playing on it's like dominating my thoughts. Fuck you, every time you handstand you're going to be doing this, should you be doing this, should you be doing that? And it's like, I've already logically looked at it, put into place, like, eliminate these aggravating factors, back off on this portion, if this continues happening in a week's time, do this. And it's still just like this anxiety and worry in my brain mind. And it's it's just like, okay, look, this is going to happen, Karen. You're just going to have to force these thoughts out. Like, it's going to, every time you see this, spend the mental effort of 10 seconds going, no, you've put in like these things in place already. You're doing this right, move on. So that's kind of the outcome, I guess, of that. It's I just thought it's worth bringing up, because I don't know, sometimes people don't talk about this, and it's actually been helpful talking to some friends about this and being like,
it's a helpful thing. And one other reminder as well for anybody thinking about this, because again, it's not like, I think everybody thinks this way. In the end, there's a good question as well to ask yourself, and it's a so what question, because I think ultimately as well, we fall prey to the thought of, I am a handstander, or I am a gym goer, or I'm a this and a that, and so if I'm not doing this, obviously internally for yourself there's a part to it, but then for others it's like, well, now I've been seen as this, or I do that, but I'm no longer doing that. And I think one part of the so what question, not to say that it's a zero of the so what, but nobody gives a shit. Nobody really gives a shit about you.
Yeah,
nobody really gives a shit about me. Nobody really gives a shit much about you, me more than lights. You know, there's some really close people to you that you will give a shit about, and and those are great people to have and be close to them, and there's reasons why. But for the most part, you know, if you like,
stub your toe, you stumble whilst walking.
Yeah, like the other day, you know, I did a bit of an injury to my tendon in my chest. I talked about it. I did whatever. No one gave a shit about it at the gym. You know, my partner doesn't give a shit. My family doesn't give a shit. Really, like they're like, oh, I hope it's not too injured or whatever.
Bummer. Yeah.
Is it really affecting their life? No. You know, who affects me, right? So ultimately, the so what's like, you know what? Nobody gives a shit about this. Nobody.
Yeah.
And if you're out there, me and more like, I wonder how is, you know, if he's going well and he's recuperating. Hats off to you. Thank you very much. But I don't think you are. And that's okay. And I think it's also the reality that sometimes, you know, if you're going through shit, or, you know, you're not able to do the things you want or whatever, sometimes it's almost a helpful realization that it's like, you know, that in that really, you know, distant way of thinking, it's like you look out into the universe and be like, fuck, I'm so insignificant, but in a good way. In like the, wow, you know, amongst the cosmos and everything that's happening, yes, I'm like focusing in on this thing that's really affecting me, but in the end, overall, it is such an insignificant part of like life, humanity, the timeline in general. Is it worth really, you know, getting concerned about that much? Maybe not really. Cool, move on. I did find out that in my, at least, I maybe it's a little bit different because of the modalities I've been doing, but when I injured my chest, there was a little bit of concern about it for a few minutes, and maybe an hour or two, until I was like, meh, I don't care anymore. Like, okay, I'll just run. I'll just do this. I'll do something else. It was really, not that I had like this deep thought in my mind, but it was in essence that of like, in the grand scheme of things, so what? So what? Okay, I might not be able to bench as heavy. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, move on. Do something else with it. So.
Yeah.
But always worth conversing about.
Yeah, and that stuff used to actually be more prevalent for me. They're looking at me, they're judging me, they think this about me, people say this stuff, and of course, you know, none of it is true. And funnily enough, I'm not sure that method has particularly worked for me, and this is like the weird stuff of human psychology, where there's no one fix, and for me, I found it almost the opposite way, where it's like, if I put almost more importance on everything that I do, and I go, you know, every action that I do matters and counts, that somehow has a way of taking off pressure, you know, in this like real random way, because then I'm like, oh, everyone thinks that everything they do is super, yeah, it's very strange. But that I remember hearing about that thing before, and I'd try it for myself, but it would just add in like some like nihilism or some anxiety of like, fucking nothing matters, flip over the table sort of thing. Whereas,
yeah, I think mine was more centered.
No,
on,
I totally get what you were meaning. Yeah.
But from a and if folks are wondering, it's like, oh, is there a nihilistic view? No, it's putting yourself more in a rational view of this is actually what is happening.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, for some people, they'll find that, and then for others like me, they'll maybe find it a bit more nihilistic. Like, their brain will side towards being a bit more nihilistic. Yeah. So I found more of a deterministic is maybe the better way of saying it, where it's like, there's nothing I could have done. Like, there is no free will. You have no free will, Kyron.
But see, even then though, I kind of go like, nah, that's a lie. That you're lying to yourself. You could have done something different. Like, say approaching a girl, you know, you walk out of it and you're like, man, you think negatively, like, I could have, I didn't. And you go, well, if you think like, like, okay, look, there was no free will there. Okay, bullshit. Don't lie to yourself. Like, you could have actually.
Watch this. So I say there's no free will. There's nothing I could have done, and in your mind, you see that as an excuse, an out. For me, I see that as there was like forces at work. Yeah, it's like a release valve. There was forces at work which meant that nothing else could have happened. Does that mean for the next one, that there is no determinism, and that you'll be fated to not do it? No, because maybe for the next one, I'll be fated to do the approach.
So these are two different takes. Because for me, say if that was a scenario, I would have gone like, no, that's an excuse that I'm putting there. So for the next time, I'd be like, remember how you felt like shit for doing that? Cool.
Yeah.
Now do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's, there's two different methods there. What for each of us? One way works for you, one way works for me, and it's
and again, this is definitely like the character, who you are as a person, and how you deal with things. Again, like we are different people in the way that we probably interact with the world around us. And again, you, me, Immortalites will also interact very differently with the world around you. Play around, see what works. Obviously, best for you. You're not going to get it right the first time. You might. If so, well done. Congratulations. If you don't, cool. Figure it out. Try different things.
Yeah, kind of that know thyself. That phrase of looking in, and once again, this is where, like, for some people, maybe looking inwards isn't the best thing to do. Maybe it's better to look outwards. I generally find, I think for most people, looking inwards is a helpful thing. But
yeah. I mean, it's helpful. It's good to know, and if you can find peace within oneself about the things of who you are as a person, and individual, and your character, actions, values, etc. It really helps. It really does help. And it's like goals or aspirations push you. But values pull you, right? In a life. So ultimately, you need to know as well for yourself, like what's pushing you to do something, but also what's pulling you to actually go do things as well. And sometimes the pull might be stronger than your push. And so, if you have this mentality, well, I just explained the thing like, no, it's an excuse. You should push yourself. But if your value is pulling you somewhere else, man, that value is going to pull you no matter what. And so it's like you're kind of like fighting yourself. So you got to find what really works. So you're aligned to yourself, most definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this at the start of the podcast around value for value, podcast 2.0, and ethics. If folks enjoyed this conversation, they want to provide value. They're like, I want to send you money by Patreon, PayPal. How can we help you? What do you say?
I say no.
No.
I say no. And the reason for this is because we're a value for value podcast. Sorry, Trevor, you're going to have to endure it at least one more time. The Value for Value podcast, and there's a crow just above Juan looking to poo on him and provide some value.
For shit to come to me.
Provide some value in terms of entertainment for the the viewers of the video. That would actually be. Don't use my white shirt, motherfucker. Yes, it's a Value for Value podcast. So to highlight, we will not take advertising money of any sort ever. We do not believe in that. It is many reasons for that, but I want to try and provide the most open, truthful way of speaking that I can, and taking advertising of any sort is I find antithetical to that. Antithetical, is that a word?
Antithetical?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Good.
We're independent thinkers, and we independently put our thoughts into the ether for you to consume for value.
Yeah, and
if you enjoy that, fantastic.
We try and make it so transparent that even when you can see, like, oh, they're talking about this thing because they have an economic interest in it or something like that, we try and make it apparent so that you know that. Like, if there's a reason we're talking about something, we talk about Bitcoin. You and I both hold Bitcoin, and so that's one portion of it. And then the other is, if you want to support us, many ways you can do it: time, talent, and or treasure. So if we're denying you the treasure portion because you want to use the easy way through Patreon or PayPal, there is the value for value and Boostergram. So this is getting a youpodcastapp.com, one of those, and throwing some Satoshis into there, or earning some if you're on Fountain, and then sending them our way.
I mean, the other value as well is, again, share it. Share it with a friend. That's valuable to us because it actually gets our message, our ideas across to other people, and that's value for value.
And feedback. Like I was saying, I've received some very helpful feedback this last kind of week, and the more of that, the better, for sure. So whichever way you want to do that, whether it be via Boostergram, whether it be by a message, via any of the links that you'll see down in the show notes, whether it be by talking to us in person, any and all are very much appreciated.
Absolutely. I'll finish it with this because you might not know this terminology, but some people in the technology world might. But in the building of websites or content creation, especially in CMSs, content management systems, there's this thing that businesses usually use called WYSIWYG. You heard of WYSIWYG?
No.
WYSIWYG is you have a little text box and businesses say, I want a WYSIWYG, right?
A WYSIWYG.
A WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get.
Okay.
As in what you type in, bold it, make colorful. That's exactly when I do it in a content management system is what I want to see on the website, right? I want to see this like for like. so it doesn't look any different. And I think that's what you get from the mere mortals, right? We are WYSIWYG. We are what you see is what you get. There's no
like
deeper foundational. There's no advertising pushing a particular narrative. You know, whatever we're saying, there's no middleman. There's no independent other person kind of being like, oh, push this thought. It is us. So what you see is what you get, folks.
Nice. I like that.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Mere Mortalites, I hope you have enjoyed. Have a wonderful week, whenever you're listening to this. One out.
WYSIWYG for the win. Kyron out.
Good.